needs. It wasn't just a small-town clinic. It was the town's clinic. And as such, it should benefit all the town's people, not just the insured ones. But she wisely kept that to herself.
"This is exactly the kind of project Mercy Alliance was created to fund,"
Tipton said, and Charlotte struggled to contain her excitement. But it was difficult. Almost as difficult as not blurting out, "I told you so." When she'd reached out to Mercy Alliance, it seemed like nothing more than a Hail Mary. No one, including her father, had considered it a realistic possibility. But Charlotte had. Even though their medical center had been labeled too small or too ambitious by every investor the board had approached, she knew that all it took was one person to see the potential of their idea. So, when a friend from medical school mentioned that Mercy Alliance was pulling its funding from a mid-size hospital chain out west, Charlotte contacted them immediately. And now she was about to see her dream become a reality for thousands of kids in the area. Beating death and living life were two separate challenges, and Charlotte wanted to bridge the gap where insurance left off. Her vision was to create a pediatric rehabilitation clinic where no child was denied treatment based on the family's ability to pay, which was where Mercy Alliance, and their generous endowment, came in.
"But the board feels that at a bigger facility, our funds would go further, help more people,"
Tipton added. And suddenly, all that excitement felt like a big, suffocating knot in her chest. Why she'd thought that all she had to do was convince this one man that her plan was good enough, she had no idea. But her dad's look said he'd expected this all along. In fact, his grim expression seemed to be doing the "I told you so" dance all over her morning.
"Paging Dr. Holden to room 22.
A slightly harassed voice came over the hospital's intercom.
"Paging Dr. Charlotte Holden. Code Silver in room 22. Dr. Holden to room 22.
And just like that, the knot in her chest grew to cut off her entire air supply. "Please tell me I misunderstood the page," Charlotte asked, taking the medical chart from Dr. Benjamin Clark.
"Wish I could,"
Ben said, hustling to keep pace with her. He was handsome in that intellectual way that usually got her. And he had gotten her, which made him her ex. They'd dated all through undergrad and then again last summer when he'd been hired at the medical center. He was a bright, rising star in medicine who came from a good family, and was just like her, which was why they quickly decided they were better suited as friends.
"I also wish I could have handled it myself, but the situation requires a woman's touch."
"Chicken?"
"Damn right. She took one look at my anatomy and went straight for the boys. I barricaded myself behind the exam table and paged you."
"You always were a little skittish when it came to aggressive women." Ben rolled his eyes at that, but didn't argue. "Keep watch and make sure no one comes in." The last thing she needed right then was to have another patient, or, God forbid, Mr. Neal, walk by. Charlotte tapped on the door, waited the respectful amount of time, then entered. And sighed. 4 years of medical school, another 3 in residency at one of the top hospitals in Georgia, and this was what her life had come to. She stared at her patient, who was on all fours licking the soap dispenser, and allowed herself a quick roll of the eyes before plastering on her most southern smile, entering the room, and making sure to close the door behind her. "Mrs. Ferguson," Charlotte greeted, then looked at her patient, who had moved from the soap dispenser to nuzzling the hospital gown on the exam table. "Wilhelmina." June Ferguson stood and smoothed down her dress. It was denim with cowhide trim and speckled with fertilizer, which was appropriate since she was co-owner of Ferguson family's feed line and fertilizer farm. The code silver in question dropped the gown and bleated aloud, "Bah," before huddling under the exam table, which was appropriate since